Hello, everybody, and thank you very much for joining me. It's Alan Barry Labucan with the Rocks and Stocks News website. We've got another in our interviews with executives of mining companies that have good news. This one's a sponsor of the website. Endurance Gold has some, I started covering them a few months ago, and they had some really great news out. And then they had to wait for their new season to start. That has recently started. That was one of their news releases. Their drilling is underway, and then they added to that Keep Reliance project. So I've got Robert Boyd on the horn today to talk about those news releases. Thanks for joining us, Robert.
Well, thank you for having me again, Alan. It was a pleasure to speak to you in the past and to speak to you again now. We're back drilling. We announced in April that we're back with an RC drill rig, testing new zones. We've got a head start on other people in the province just because of our location. We're a really well-located property. If you recall, it's only about a 4-hour summer drive north of Vancouver, right near the town of Goldbridge, in an historic mining camp that's produced over 4 million ounces of gold. So we're back on a drill program. Our program last year was extremely successful. We did a couple of phases of RC and then also a diamond drill program of 22 diamond drill holes. And just to summarize the statistics of those 22 holes, 16 of them had gram meter product intersections over a 10 gram meter product. And 4 of those had highlight intersections of over 100 gram meter product, which are very significant hits. So that's a pretty good statistical hit for an orogenic gold system, having a gold hit ratio like that. And one of those,
especially when you're talking really close to surface, those orogenic systems tend to go very deep because they're big cracks in the earth that are deep-seated cracks in the earth, bringing those fluids to the surface.
Absolutely. One of those greater than 100 gram meter product drill holes was one that ran 15.7 grams over 24.8 meters. And that was only maybe about 20 meters vertically below surface, about 30 meters downhole in an angled hole. So it's, we're drilling under these altered outcrops. And so the zone is daylighting there. And that hole in particular was the best hole that we've ever had on the property, and is the furthest hole to the southeast, as we're opening up in a new area, which we call the Eagle area, where we've identified the gold now over about 400 meters of strike in shallow drill holes and on surface. And our goal this year is,
my memory serves me right, that cross section looks something like you're going down the hill, and down here is where the fault is, and that could be described as maybe the farthest extension from the conduit, if you will.
Yeah, well, we have sort of 2 structural controls that we seem to be seeing in the area on the property over about a 1.5 kilometer trend. One is a steeper one around about a minus 80 degree dip, and then there's a shallower one dipping around minus 35 degree dip. A lot of our intersections on the upper hill were the shallower intersection type structures. So a shallow dipping, a breccia structure, and it's important to emphasize these are not veins. It's a breccia type structure. But the best drill hole, we interpret that best drill hole was actually in one of these steeper structures and may have been a feeder for the shallower structures. And that's why we're really excited about getting back to test this system and understand it, because those steeper structures are the ones that go deep and create the openings for these systems continuing significantly at depth. And that's one of the things that's encouraging about orogenic gold systems, is that once you're onto them and understand the structural controls and the plunge directions, you can often follow these gold systems significantly at depth. And it's all about the economics of mining them at depth rather than their ability to continue.
Well, one of those examples is the Fosterville mine, the Swan Zone. It really, launched Kirkland Lake into a huge winner on the stock performance, and that was an orogenic system. And you mentioned something there about a secondary structure, and that's another characteristic of these. They can be quite complex. In this case, complex is good, faulting systems. And it sounds like you're getting a handle on that.
Yeah, these epizonal orogenic or high-level orogenic gold systems often have an antimony or a stibnite or melandrite or some sort of antimony mineral association, and that's that's where the similarities are with Fosterville, is that we've got this high-level epizonal type system that suggests that you're right at the top of the system. So when you follow those systems at depth, they can transition into areas where there's more free gold and less stibnite, going down into the more crack and seal when you get into a different type of structural regime at depth. And so, and that's what's happened at Fosterville. Fosterville, they started, it was an historic mine that was producing, and after Kirkland Lake Gold acquired it, that their exploration and drilling activity got them into this really high grade zone as the epizonal system evolves going at depth, and they discovered and those chutes and operational areas that they're mining within the Fosterville are really made that mine into a great success for Kirkland Lake Gold. So we have similarities. There's also differences. One thing we seem to have is quite a very wide alteration system related to carbonate or CO2 alteration, which creates an iron carbonate alteration envelope, which is very large on our system, probably because we're in the high level brittle deformation area. And so you got a lot of broken up rock that is really susceptible to alteration.
But a big alteration zone like that is indicative of a potentially a very powerful mineralizing system.
That's right. And orogenic gold system, that's one of the things that often characterize them is the CO2 driven alteration, which when you get into iron rich rocks, that CO2 alters the rock and turns the iron minerals into iron carbonate that reprecipitates. And so often that's a very common association with orogenic gold systems, is this carbonate alteration envelopes. And so our testing work now, because we're shallow, we're going through an initial test work with RC drilling. We're going to be testing that with the shallower intersections, because with the iron carbonate and sulfides, we can find that these zones near surface are difficult to recover with diamond drill holes near surface. And so we test the zones, find the edge of the system with this dry RC drilling technique, and we get 100% recovery through the zones with that technique. So that's the phase we're in now, and we're transitioning back into the diamond drill as the month progresses here in May. And by early June, we'll be back with diamond drilling, testing and chasing these zones at depth with diamond drill holes, and stepping out as well, because we believe the system's still open along strike. And we have already indicated in drill holes and gold over at least about a 1.5 kilometer strike length in drill holes, and mostly near surface. But one historic zone has been followed down dip about 200 meters below surface, and still wide open at depth. And so there's lots of work we can focus on with the drilling, the diamond drilling, to chase these things at depth.
That's another sign of the power of the mineralizing system, is you've got a very large strike length there. And I think the lenses that they mined at Swan Zone were very small, super rich, and very profitable to mine. But it sounds like you guys have all the hallmarks of a powerful, high-grade, orogenic system that you're just getting your teeth into.
Yeah, that's right. And we find that the system looks like it's got potential to mineralize parallel structures. And some of our RC work, we're testing one of those parallel structures. But just to touch on our other recent release, which just on Monday, is we acquired another property that adjoins our Reliance property called we call it the Olympic Claims, and we optioned it from one of the historic companies that's owned the property for many years in the camp of Silver and Gold, who are quite active in Mexico now with their silver mine in Mexico. And that project, we've got the right to acquire 100% of that and can buy down any retained royalty to zero if necessary. But it's further to the east from where we are located, but on parallel structures and with many other gold occurrences in the camp that have the same iron carbonate, stibnite, gold association on parallel structures. One of which, the Minto mine, has actually produced gold, about 17,000 ounces of gold pre-Second World War. And so a lot of these projects and these prospects in the camp that we've now acquired, both on our two properties, adjoining property, which we now is a much larger Reliance property, around 2,400 hectares or so in size. And a lot of those prospects are more of these orogenic type things that have never been tested with modern exploration methodology. So we're going to go back and systematically build these targets with the goal of finding and discovering other potential targets in here that can really complement what we're doing at the Royal Shear, which is where we're really getting the excitement in our drilling right now. So
it's sounding a little to me like the potential of, how VMS systems, they often repeat. We're seeing that sort of story developing in Newfoundland, where Newfound Gold is finding the same kind of orogenic system with multiple lenses or systems there. And it sounds like that's what you're going to look for.
Well, these orogenic systems can be quite powerful. They're what makes them strong is that they're kind of the alteration and mineralizing systems that pump and bring the gold up the systems are coming from great depth, and as a result, they can often be mineralized over larger areas, but the mineralization is controlled within a certain structural regime, and so you've got to have the right connection, a combination of structural regime, alteration, and then where you are within that structural regime as to what creates the best location for the gold. And so but as a result of that, these systems can be quite large and followed over many kilometers, both along strike as well as at depth. So
and multiple phases.
That's right, yeah. And so it's really a matter of doing the systematic work to identify where the targets are based on the associated geochemistry associated with these gold systems, which is antimony and arsenic, and use that to help zone in on areas that we want to test with trenching or diamond drilling as we progress in our evaluation of the district. So
that's the path you followed to find the Eagle Zone and this other mineral, and now it looks like you're going to follow that same path while you're following up on what you've already discovered.
Yeah, well, these areas that we're looking at are quite tree covered, and one of the trees that dominates in our area is Douglas fir, which is one of the well-known kind of evergreen trees that exist in our area. But there's been a lot of scientific research work done, interestingly, that Douglas fir likes to soak up arsenic, and so we took advantage of that in our area and did. Some of the work we did along the Royal Shear was sampling twig clippings from Douglas fir and use that to test for arsenic, and that helped us identify and zone in on targets in our area and so we hope to use that technique again on some other parallel structures to test initially with biogeochem, and then find the hotter spots where we see with the trace element association, and then follow those up with more systematic soil and trenching and ultimately drilling.
So what's the treasury looking like these days, Robert? You got a
Well,
lot of
we,
money ahead of you?
yeah, in early March, we closed a hard dollar financing of 3 million that had a half warrant attached. And we also had an earlier financing where we got some 25-cent warrants that are likely to be dribbling this year. So then so our working capital is pretty healthy. At the year end, we had about 3.1 in working capital, which included shares that we own in the company. Now we also we've raised another 3 million in March, and then we also have some tax credit receivables and warrants coming in that could bring in another million or so. So we're in pretty good shape. Our intent and plan was to do about a 8,000 to 10,000 meter diamond drilling program this year, and we feel comfortable that our funding will cover us on that to can complete that program.
Well, it sounds like you've got the potential there for a larger program and more funding based on what you've found to date and what you're looking for now, and that additional ground you acquired.
Yeah, we've got a really good land position now. We're onto a really good target that just in its own could generate a multi-million ounce system. That's our hope. And so being market capitalized at less than 50 million Canadian indicates that there's still a lot of upside for us and shareholders to participate in our success.
Well, people like to look at comparables, and I guess one that might be a comparable is Newfound Gold. They've got over $1 billion valuation, and it sounds to me like you've got a similar kind of situation setting up there.
Yeah, and comparisons are always odious because we're all different, but we're both on orogenic, epizonal orogenic type gold systems. In areas that have, these zones and prospects have been sticking out on surface and never really recognized for their potential. So the stories are very similar. And we're on to a very good success ratio. I would hazard to say that our drilling success is probably similar or better to what Newfound Gold's discovery statistics are. So yeah, there's some interesting comparables. Geologically, things look a little different, but that stibnite or antimony associations there. They have some free gold, which at this point we don't, but that could be just where we are in our system, and that may change as we go deeper.
Well, it's sure standing out to me as an excellent prospect for investors out there that are looking into exposure to high-grade gold systems. And you guys are in very early days and done a lot of great work, and you're going to apply that same system method to your new ground while you're drilling more into your exciting stuff.
Well, that's right. We've got that systematic kind of work is always a good thing to do in a camp, and it generates targets that you're comfortable and makes sense to test with drilling ultimately. So,
well, the Truth Machine's speaking nicely so far, and I'm looking forward to some more news from that drilling. What the Truth Machine has to tell us going forward.
Yeah, well, that's the kind of updates that'll be coming, or updates on where we are with the drilling program. So stay tuned. We're going to have a pretty busy season of updates and drill results through the end of the year.
Well, I have a lot of confidence we're going to be doing a bunch of these interviews going forward, Robert. I always enjoy talking to you. We've known each other for quite some time from our experience in diamonds, and you got to really roll up your sleeves in diamond exploration, and you guys are doing that kind of work. So that means a lot to me, Robert. Someone has that kind of science-based exploration methods, and you guys are following that script quite nicely.
Absolutely. Looking for gold is a little different than looking for diamonds, but it takes good geological abilities that encompass many fields in what we study in geology. to understand them and do it properly.
And you've been doing that for a long time, Robert.
I have, yes, I have a lot of gray hair to show for it, but at least I have my hair. So
I'm working on my gray hairs. It's coming in quite nicely.
yeah. Okay.
Okay, Robert, I'm going to wrap things up and we'll have a little chat at the end. Let me just close things off.
Sure.
So there you go, folks. Endurance has my enthusiasm simply because of what their drilling has already exposed. These orogenic systems are very exciting. With success, they can return into company makers, even a company maker for a company like Kirkland Lake. They've got similarities to what's going on out in the exciting Newfoundland area. Orogenic system, deep crustal faults, these breaks in the earth that allow the fluids to come up. They've got the indications on the geochemistry and with the drilling that it's a big system. And now they're getting their handle on it and where to predictably be able to find more. They've got a good amount of drilling upcoming. I think they're going to have great news flow, and they still have a $45 million valuation. And you start having success on these kind of systems and you start talking about hundreds of $1 million valuations. And I think they've got that realistic kind of potential. So for investors that want exposure to a hit it out of the park kind of potential at a reasonable valuation, Endurance is one for you to look at. On that note, my shows are all for information purposes only. It's important for you to speak with your financial advisors and do your homework. And I encourage you to go check out Endurance website, look at their news releases, their corporate presentation, and it'll help you to understand why this looks like such a good prospect for investors. On that note, have a great day and we'll talk to you soon.